In England in the late 80s and early 90s, when I was trying to find my place in space, the country was moving swiftly from the ethnic arts of the 70s to the black arts of the mid-80s, to the multiculturalism of the late 80s, to the new internationalism of the early 90s, the cultural diversity of the mid-90s, and the globalization of the new millennium, to the transnational of the current period. This was a period of substantial rhetoric and theorization. In spite of talk about inclusion, the reverse was still the case, and where it existed, it was extremely selective. Between the period of 1995 and 2005, the art world changed drastically. The new millennium ushered in a period of unprecedented movement of peoples, ideas, and goods through the power of information and communication technology and transportation. The big countries' festivals and all-encompassing festivals or jamborees of Brazil, China, Mexico, India, Africa gave way to a proliferation of biennales, art fairs, and mega exhibitions, not only in European centers, but also in Asia and in Africa. In Africa, there existed the Cairo Biennale, but also the Johannesburg Biennale, now defunct, the Bamako and the Dakar Biennales, among others. There were battles being fought by people such as Mwinzo, Oluogwibe, Salah Hassan, Napier Diawara, and Simon Jami for the soul of contemporary art from Africa and the right to have a voice within global contemporary art discourse, culminating in Ngwizo's unsurpassed three firsts: the first African, the first black person, and the first non-European artistic director of Documenta 10. During this period, African and African diasporan artists also came to prominence in unprecedented ways. Steve McQueen, Chris O'Philly, Yinka Shonibare, Ena Natri, Pascal Martin Tayu, Billy Bijoka, Bartholomew Tobu, Sokari Douglas Camp, and many more. It was a global world in which the interdependency of nations, markets, and cultures increasingly played an important part, one in which established certainties about the nature of culture, tradition, and authenticity were being constantly questioned, one in which new identities were being foregrounded outside and beyond those of the nation state, making it less easy to define the nature of the local and the international, as many cultural interactions operated on the level of the transnational. Within this context, artists and their works are increasingly mobile and dispersed within global networks and cultural flows. The starting point and the core of what we do is the library, because there is little or no critical discourse or writing going on in the country. We also do talks and panel discussions with local and international artists, art managers, and curators and critics. In spite of no operational funding, but with project funding, we've been able to present an innovative and engaging exhibition program, bringing artists and curators from within Nigeria, across the continent and globally to a Nigerian audience. And we also highlight issues and themes that would never otherwise find a public platform. Zanele Muholi is a South African photographer whose work was presented at CCA in 2000 and 2008. Zanele Muholi's work is unprecedented in South Africa, where there are few instances of black women openly portraying female same-sex practices. As a gender and sexual rights activist and as a photographer, she confronts the notion that lesbian practices are alien to African cultures. In presenting the work at CCA, we acknowledge a moment of transition, a rite of passage in which the works of Zanele Muholi and Lucia Azubuike are reinventing the way images of black women's subjectivity is portrayed and consumed. In confidently presenting a different way of seeing and being, Muholi states that her work is about, I quote, the desire to get beyond what lesbians do in bed and confront key issues such as the lack of ownership gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered people have over their voices, their personal spaces, and in the places where they live and work. This is a series, one of the first series that actually brought Zanele Muholi to the limelight. It was an exhibition called Only Half the Picture, and her first series actually focused on the virulent attacks that black lesbians are subjected to within South Africa, and she documents the scars and the trauma that this causes many of these women. In portraying, Muholi shows us the multidimensional aspects of black lesbian life and how they negotiate their private lives in the public space. In public, the most virulent being the violence perpetrated against their person, one in which the rape of black lesbians by men is seen as a curative process. Mary Sibande's book is actually an artist that whose work I came across about 4 months ago, and I was able to see some of it at the Johannesburg Art Fair in March this year. In Sibande's practice as an artist, she employs the human form as a vehicle through painting and sculpture. These are early works that she started working on whilst she was still in school, and she uses her painting and sculpture to explore the construction of identity in a post-colonial South African context, but also attempts to critique stereotypical depictions of women, particularly black women in their society. The body for Sibande, and particularly the skin and clothing, is a site where history is contested and where fantasies are played out. So she first of all started doing these paintings of shoes, the kinds of shoes that she desires, the kinds of clothes that she would like to wear. From the paintings, she now started doing these sort of installations where she actually made the shoes using very luxurious materials and adding them to a plain red-black background. And then from there, she started moving on to these sculptural works where she started putting the shoes and casing them in a very precious way, as if they were these precious objects. And with that, she starts to think about desiring these objects. A lot of the very, very expensive shoes that she would like to buy or wear, which at the moment she can't afford. So it's sort of putting these, this desire into her work, representing it through her work. I want to talk about the work of Bright Eke, a Nigerian artist who I met in 2005, whilst he was finishing his final year project. I found his work interesting as I was actually traveling around on my curatorial research trip as part of the 2006 Dakar Biennale. I visited Unsuka, where they have interesting artists who are working with Professor Ella Natri, and I met Bright Eke, who was then developing this project using water and plastic bags as material. Contemporary Nigeria will relate to new artistic practices that are more experimental, such as performance art. For example, in Nigeria, I only know of one performance artist. I only know of one sound artist. Video artists, there are probably less than 20 artists working in video in Nigeria. So I think that, you know, it's not yet a critical discourse that has been looked at in the country, and something that needs to something we need to engage with, and we've started engaging with.